Hello friends, how are you doing today? In this video, what we are going to do, we are going to see the answer for the question that we discussed in the last video for solution architect interview, right? Let me share the screen. I prepared a couple of chart and then I am going to share the chart with you in a link in the description so you can download and use it. I don't want to just talk about the solution. I just wanted to list out the key points to consider so that you can keep those points in your mind while answering the question to the interviewer. Okay, so let me start sharing my screen. Hope you can see my screen. So this is the question that we asked in the last video, right? An auto parts retailer company of asset value $10 billion, and they have like 5 million customers, and their monthly transaction volume is 7 million transactions per month, and almost 95% of their revenue are through their in-person store, and also the 5% transactions are coming through the online store. The problem statement, um, since the maintenance and capex charges are increasing while running everything on their on-prem services, on-prem environment, they wanted to migrate to cloud, and also they wanted to move their 95% of the in-person store to the online store. Okay, as a solution architect, how do you provide the technical implementation, and what are all the services that you use to provide the solution? And the time period for this implementation is just 3 weeks, and you must explain this solution in 60 minutes to the interviewer. Okay, so let's go to the answering part. So before jumping on to provide the solution for this particular problem or answering the question to the interviewer, you must keep all these points in your mind. Okay, first thing is, do not jump into the solution immediately. Okay, you must list out all the questions related to the question that asked by the interviewer and get more clarity on the question, because utmost clarity is very important before providing solution. And second thing is, as a solution architect, you must think the resource availability and also the time and skill availability in your organization. You must ask this question to the interviewer: hey, how many resources are available for executing this project, and what is the skill level of those resources? So these questions you must ask to the interviewer, and you must provide the strategy of implementation. So basically, when you were saying that, okay, I want to provide the solution, and you are planning to move your application to the cloud to make everything online, and what kind of strategy you have, like whether you are going to put everything into the cloud, or you want to keep some layers of your application in the cloud and some layers in the on premises, and whether you are going with a hybrid cloud strategy or full public cloud strategy. All those strategies you must ask. Okay, and also, if you get the clarity on those strategies, you can keep in mind while answering to the interviewer. And you must assess the skill set of the resources. Yeah, that's we discussed, right? We had to ask the question to the interviewer and understand like what is the skill set of the resources. Suppose some of the organization, they just have the wish to migrate all their project into the cloud, but they may not have that kind of skill set available in their company. So for that, you must prepare before moving into the cloud, and think about short term and long term solutions. So certain things can be done in very short time. Suppose if your application is cloud native application, and if it is like just a lift and shift, and you don't need to plan long term solution, just lift and shift and continue working on the existing application. And some application may need additional development work, so that is kind of long term solution approach. So you have to ask the questions related to this to the interviewers to understand it, and always have more than one solution. So when you provide solution as a solution architect to the interviewer, you must list out couple of options, one or two or three options, so that interviewer as a company owner or CEO, they can pick the right option for them, right? And while rolling out the solution, you might not roll out everything in one shot. So there are stages you need to follow so that there will not be any issue in implementing the solution for the customer. So you must explain about rolling out details to the customer or the interviewer who is asking the question. And also think about low store location. In this case, this is an online store strategy. They wanted to move everything from in person to online. So you must know some details about the customer volume, which region the customer is available high, and which region is like very low customer availability. Always ask these questions to keep in mind that this can be helpful while answering or picking the region for providing the cloud migration solutions. And also understand like where the high customer dense states. If a particular state is like very dense customer availability in that for that particular company, you must pay special attention to that particular state, and the region related to the state must be perfectly chosen to avoid the latency issues or any high volume transaction issues. And start with a smaller number of transactions. So for example, if you want to execute this solution, you can do in two ways. Like we can pick where the low density of customers available, and then pick that one and roll out into the cloud and test it out, because the impact will be less, right? And if there are any problems, you can rectify it and implement that full stable solution for the high volume transaction regions, right? So you can always think about two options, like the start with small or start with big. Always I say start with small so that you can capture all those issues whatever happening without bigger impact, so that you can confidently go and implement for the bigger volume transaction series, right? And these are all the points that you have to remember and ask to the interviewer, so that you can get very good clarity on the question. Okay. And these are all the some of the questions that you must ask to the interviewer. First one is the current state architecture. Always ask what is the current state architecture, where the application is running, whether it is application only running in your on premises and database is running on your private cloud, or both are running in private cloud, and what kind of the existing architecture is looking like. So all those things you have to ask to the interviewer. And always ask this question: what is the real intention to the move cloud, right? Some of the customers or some people, what they do, like since everyone is moving to the cloud, some people may have that intention to move to the cloud, but it is not required to be moved to the cloud without any real intention. Ask why they wanted to move to the cloud. Okay. But in this case, they mentioned that they wanted to make all the stores online, and also like they are very large volume transactions happening. So it is obvious that it has to be moved to the cloud so that it can address all the high availability scalability issues, right? And as we discussed, you must know where the customer density is more east, west, or northeast, so that you can understand and pick the right region for implementing your project or deploying your application to the right region, so that the latency will be low, right? Suppose if high customer density is in the west region, and you must always pick the west region in the cloud service provider, so that the latency for the west region customers are low, right? And what UI and UX technology being used, whether those UI and UX technology are cloud native, you need to work something on that to make it cloud native. So you must ask this question. And also like what is middleware technology is used in the application, legacy application. If it is not a cloud native application, then you may need to work on first converting that application to cloud native application, then push into the cloud, right? And also like if they are using microservices, that is easy, right? Because microservices are always cloud native, so it is easy for you to just lift and shift or migrate to the cloud. And always ask about the DB. Database is very important. If it is like DB which is running on the on-premises, is it possible to move it to the cloud, and what kind of data migration strategy you must be using, and whether it is a non-SQL database or SQL database. All those questions you must ask, so that you can pick the right service in the cloud service provider. And also like whether the existing DB which is running on the on-premises is having like high availability disaster recovery, or is it something like not with the high availability and disaster recovery strategies. And if it is not, then you need to advise the customer to move to the cloud with the high availability and disaster recovery architecture. And also if any containerization being used in the legacy environment, you must always follow that strategy while moving to the cloud too, because they already identified the containerization strategy to address all the high availability issues, so that they can serve the customers better while the application is running in the on premises, right? The similar strategy must be there in the cloud also when you migrate to the cloud. So make sure that you understand their containerization strategy as well, and how the current system is working. If it is cloud native, yes, you can just do a plan of lift and shift, and if it is not, you have to do some kind of little development work and then later move it to the cloud. I hope you might have got a good idea about what are all the questions that you must ask to the interviewer based on the question they asked to you to answer, right? And this chart talk about additional info about the question. So it's not only the technical details that you must know from the interviewer, you must also know the business impact details, skills details, time details. Okay, basically, what are all the values that customer going to get while implementing this solution? You must know what is the business impact for them as an organization, how they will get benefit out of moving into the cloud migration. So in this case, it is obvious, right? They wanted to reduce the capital expenses and they wanted to reduce the maintenance cost. So they wanted to migrate everything into the cloud. And second thing is, in the business wise, if the project fails, what is the recovery or rollback mechanism they have? Is there anything already planned? If not, you must provide a solution for that too. And do they have a backup and recovery mechanism existing in the current infrastructure? If it is existing, that's well and good. You can reuse that. Suppose after migrating this to the cloud, if any failure occurs, how do you fall back to the existing recovery mechanism? That you must know. And budget. So budget is also very important. So when you provide this solution to the interviewer, you may say hey, we can implement with 10 resources with cloud skills and also DB skills, and the list of resources that you might provided might not be available in the company. They may need to recruit the resources, and also the time for implementing this project also may not be available. You have to think all these things and ask questions to the interviewer. And skills, we discussed about it, and you must know about existing skill in the organization, so that you can use those skills to migrate your project to the cloud. And if there are some less skills available, you have to provide the details to the interviewer to upskill the resources skill, so that they can prepare very early stage and then plan for the cloud migration successfully, right? And time, they gave 3 weeks time. It's very short, but you must come up with a reasonable deployment timeline too. And if if the interviewer is saying that you must implement into 3 weeks, you don't need to answer yes, we can do it in 3 weeks. Okay, they might have provided this unrealistic time, and you must provide the reason or justification to clearly explain that it cannot be done in 3 weeks, but it can be done in 5 weeks or 6 weeks. So that level of information you should explain to the interviewer. And you must always tell your interviewer that I need to talk to the project management to understand the shortest path to implement this solution, depending on the resources and time availability. And also once after gathering all this information, you must provide how you can roll out this solution, right? It is not like a one day task of just moving everything into the cloud. So you can provide the details on how you can roll out the solution. First, if it is lift and shift, a plan for the existing legacy applications environment, keep that available and running. And second thing is move only application UI applications, and then make sure that the app server, web servers are spun up and everything kept in the cloud. And then go for a middle layer, integrate it, and make sure that everything is working fine by connecting to the external database or connecting to the database which is running in the cloud. Do a POC kind of thing, and then slowly roll out a smaller volume of transactions and make sure that that works fine, and then slowly increase the volume of transactions. Those kind of rollout strategy you must give to the interviewer. And solution, coming to the solution. So this particular problem, right, the auto parts retail company, they wanted to move everything to the cloud. So you can always think about multiple options, as I mentioned in the while discussing the previous charts. So here also, like, I wanted to show you guys that three options. One is that lift and shift. So when you ask all these questions, the previous chart questions, to the interviewer, and you might have got all the details. So based on that, suppose if the application is cloud native application, it was already built using microservices and running in the legacy environment, you can confidently do a lift and shift, right? Lift and shift means it's not only the application part, also the DB part. Suppose if it is a simple web application, which is like using a web server and application server running on the on premises, and DB also running on the on premises, and you wanted to take the entire app and DB piece together to the cloud, you can do that. Or another option is like keep the database, which is having a lot of customer related information, you wanted to keep it very secure and safe. You can keep that running in your on premises and then move only the application into the cloud, so that you will maintain a hybrid cloud strategy where your application will be running on the cloud and your database is running on the on premises. You can still establish a connection from application to database, and in this case the migration of database is not going to be done. You just focus only on the application migration to the cloud. And the third option is like containerization. Suppose when you asked all the questions to the interviewer and they mentioned that yes, this particular application is already containerized and running in Kubernetes in the on premises, is well and good. You can just simulate the similar containerization architecture in the cloud too, either using Kubernetes or OpenShift. It's up to you. You have to provide the justification on choosing Kubernetes or OpenShift as a orchestration platform running in the cloud. Okay, and always keep in mind that you must not alter the entire architecture which is running in the on premises to the cloud. It should remain same, so that the architectural issues will be completely avoided. You should not re-architecture everything. Okay, always keep that in mind when you do a migration from legacy to cloud. This may change depending upon the use cases. Some people may think that the existing on-premises application is not containerized, but in order to increase or leverage the built-in features of Kubernetes and OpenShift, the high availability feature, they can ask you to, hey, let's migrate along with the containerization. Though, so in that case, the architecture may change. Otherwise, in this particular scenario, like they wanted to retain but just keep everything in the cloud. In this case, better not to alter the architecture, just move to the cloud and provide the solution as soon as possible. Okay, and also coming to these three options, provide rough architecture diagram of the target system. Okay, so while providing rough architecture diagram of the targeting system, you must start with region and zone, and I discussed about what kind of regions that customer has to choose based on the volume and density of the customer, right? And also list out the app engine, compute engines which are required to move your application. And you don't need to uh, provide the in detail configuration of the app engine or compute engine details. I'm not mentioning any specific cloud service provider here. You might use AWS, Azure, IBM Cloud, Google Cloud, whatever it may be, but pick the right compute engine based on the scenario provided to you, and also like the configuration should match and better compared to the legacy services. Okay, and also list out the DB services required if you are moving DB also to the cloud, and list out the only key services required to solve the problem. For example, there might be the pipeline services available in any cloud service. You don't need to provide that at this stage, because if you look at the timeline for implementing the solution, is just 3 weeks. So leave all those fancy stuffs aside and focus only on the core services required for implementing this solution. Okay. And moving on to the next slide, this is rough architecture diagram. You don't need to provide a detailed architecture diagram, because this is going to be like 60 to 90 minutes interview question, and you must get more details from the interviewer and then provide a solution also. So you can, if you have pen and paper, just draw a rough diagram like what is the current state based on your understanding from the interviewer, and then provide the target state architecture based on the knowledge that what you got, and what is the problem statement customer is providing or the interviewer is providing, and then provide a target state architecture with a rough diagram. And here in this case, I just showed that app will be moved into the cloud and DB will be kept in the private cloud or on premises, and still you can establish a connection from a public cloud to the private cloud. And similarly, if you want to provide the second option as a diagram, you can just put everything together. DB also going to be in the cloud. And third option, what we discussed here, is containerization. In this case of containerization, you can showcase like how these applications can be put into containerization concept, either with a Kubernetes or OpenShift, so that you can show a little rough diagram about how you are moving all these applications and DB to the cloud. Okay. And after providing this high level architecture, feature state architecture diagram, you must differentiate how the legacy architecture differs from the target architecture. Okay, in terms of high availability. So when you were running your application in the legacy, you must be like limited resources, and if there are high volume transaction happens, how will you spin up a new resources? You have to buy additional hardware, all those steps. But in case of target architecture and the cloud migration architecture, high availability can be achieved very easily, because it's all like pay as you go service. So any volume transaction occurs, it will automatically spin up additional resources. And scalability, resilience, security, maintainability, uh, focus on these architecting factors, and then explain how this is happening in legacy and how this is going to happen in target cloud architecture. Okay, so that the customer or the interviewer will understand, yes, this is the solution that we want, and this is the problem that we want to solve. As a solution architect, yes, I'm expecting these kind of answers from you, right? And then advantages of going to the target architecture system. So by answering the above, do you realize how the target architecture is different from current? You can answer all these questions. So advantages will be similar to that, right? So when you say like high availability, this is not available in legacy, but highly available in cloud migration architecture. So this is the benefit that you are going to give, right? So this is how you must answer to the interviewer, so that the interviewer will be impressed. Okay. Hope this definitely might have added some value to you. Take care. Bye.